77 of Brews Less Traveled, the podcast exploring the best craft beer scenes across the country. I'm your host, Laura, filling in this week for Brian, who is exploring the outer reaches of the space beer market.
Oh.
I highly doubt that's real, but that's what he put in the script, so I'm saying it. He's adventuring out there, you guys. So anyway, we've got a great show for you guys today, and I am joined by our BLT co-host for these San Diego episodes, YouTube personality, Mike Birch. How's it going, Mike?
Good. I like that YouTube personality. Yeah, I'm doing okay. How are you doing?
I'm good.
Great to see you. I'm glad you're hosting.
Yes, me
Not
too.
that Brian doesn't do a good job, but you know.
We got to give him a break every once in a while, right? He's got to take a little vacation. And no, he's not actually taking vacation. He's working. He is on a work trip, but he'll be back next week. But until then, we are going to be hanging out. And we have a really great brewery that we're featuring today from the San Diego area, and that is North Park Beer Company.
Yes, we've got some great beers to drink too. And the folks in the live stream have the same beers. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yay.
So we are going to be enjoying two great IPAs from North Park. We have Art is Hard. It's a New England IPA, as well as Hop Fu, a West Coast IPA. And we're going to be joined by some friends of ours to talk about beer travel and how to plan trips around visiting great beer locations like San Diego.
You want to bring our guests in here?
Oh, yes. Please.
Yeah, why not? Let's welcome two former co-hosts. You may know them from the Brews Less Traveled podcast, but also know them. They're my friends and fellow Beervengers from the Beervengers podcast. Please welcome Ethan and Glenn. Hey, fellas.
Hey, Laura. Hey, Mike. It's great to be here.
They are.
Howdy, folks. Good to see you all.
Hello. Long time no see. The last time I was officially the host without Brian here, I actually had Ethan and Glenn as co-hosts. So we're flipping the script today. I'm loving this.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Very cool. Yeah.
So you three just went on a European vacation together to explore beer, and you guys did tons of cool beer stuff. And so though Mike is our co-host, he is also a little bit of a guest because he was there with you guys. And of course, here at Brews Less Traveled, we love talking about beer vacations, planning travel around visiting breweries. So I'm really, really excited to talk about that later on. But first, I think we have to open a beer. So all of those in the live stream, and Mike, please join me.
Yeah,
we are going to start off the night with Art is Hard. So let's pour this beer. And while we're pouring, I would love to know, Ethan and Glenn, what beers are you guys enjoying this evening?
Well, Glenn, I'll let you go first.
Okay. Yes. Well, this would only be polite, right?
It would only be polite.
I unfortunately I did not get the box this month, but I was able to go to one of my local places, and I found another San Diego brewery represented. I've got the AleSmith Speedway Stout. This is a version I haven't tried. This is the Tart Cherry edition, which actually feeds into one of our themes about Belgium as well. So
very good. And
yeah, I'm drinking it out of my special glass, which we can talk about more later too.
Oh, lovely.
Beer Wonder.
And I am representing for New York City, making this a truly bi-coastal episode. I've got the Punk Lullaby from Wild East Brewing Company, an excellent small craft brewer here in New York City. It's a delightful, kind of keeping it real, West Coast IPA, making it a truly bi-coastal experience. So here we go.
Yeah, I got my Wild East hat.
Yes,
available.
get that
Love
beer
it.
poured, and we can cheers to this evening, you guys. Cheers. Prost.
Look at the haze on this beauty.
Oh,
wow.
I love it.
I know. That beer looks gorgeous there, Mike.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Cheers.
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 Super, super yum. So this North Park Beer Co. beer is Art is Hard, and this is actually a hazy IPA, and there is Simcoe, Citra, I can never say it right. How do you say that? Motueka hops?
Yeah, I usually just say Motueka. Maybe I don't say it out loud.
That's all right.
It's a reader.
Motueka.
And I'm definitely catching the tangerine, orange, tropical, fruity. There's even some like pineapple notes in there in this beer. Really, really great. It's also 7%, as is our other beer. So this could get interesting, you guys.
Yeah, it's got the oats in there, gives it a nice smooth mouthfeel to it. And now North Park is a great example of a smaller San Diego brewery that's really shining in the modern beer landscape. They were founded in 2016 by accomplished homebrewer Kelsey McNair. North Park has been known for their community-focused tap room and hop-forward beers. We can tell from this one. They were just awarded Brewery of the Year for producers from the 2,000 to 5,000 barrels at the Great American Beer Festival after capturing 4 medals, 1 gold, 1 silver, and 2 bronzes, all for their IPAs. So they are living the hop life in San Diego. And this beauty is a great example of what they've been doing. And for the record, art is hard.
Art is hard, definitely.
It's true because it's true.
Yeah. Well, that looks like a work of art, just at least from this angle.
Wow.
Is it nice and juicy as one would hope?
It's really juicy. It's got a
is.
real smooth finish and a creamsicle. You'd say they have that orange vibe in here. I definitely get a creamsicle vibe from it.
Definitely.
Even though I'm sure it's not made with any lactose. It's just got those the creaminess with the oats, and these hops just give it such a fruity tropical vibe. Let's hear your comments in the chat in the live stream. Nick is saying, "Darn, it's real good."
Yep, it sounds like a lot of people are really enjoying it. And I actually went to GABF this fall, and so
yeah,
there were 4 of us from the team who went for CBT group as a whole, and so I was there with the Brews Less Traveled booth, and we were talking about the Brews Less Traveled podcast, but also our holiday boxes. So definitely keep an eye out for those. The pre-order is live, so you don't want to miss that. But I actually went to this booth, the MPBC booth, and I tried their beers. And I tried a lot of beer that day. So I'll say I don't know if I remember it because I was drinking a lot of beer while also, selling beer boxes. So it was a great trip overall. Really, really great time. Have any of you guys been to GABF?
No, not yet.
Me neither.
Definitely a bucket list item. I was gonna say I don't know how much of it one remembers though, because I feel like if you have distinct memories of it, you're probably not doing it correctly.
Exactly. And there was a lot of people to witness to that. Definitely. Just the costumes, the energy. It was amazing. But speaking of bucket list items, we are here to be talking about beer travel and finding destinations where breweries are living and alive and having so much fun making beers all the time. And we have to talk about Europe and the trip that you guys went on. So we are going to dive in a little bit of your European beer vacation, and then we're also going to talk about beer travel as a whole. So I think we should start out with what prompted this European beer vacation. Glenn, why don't you take this one?
Okay, sure. Well, as longtime watchers of the Brews Less Traveled podcast and live stream know that Mike recently moved to Fresno, and a few months before he moved to Fresno, because he was our neighbor up until that point, he had told me about this tour that was being sponsored by this company that does a lot of groups that he'd gone on with before, and I'd been thinking about it for a little while, and then as he was leaving, I was like, we should. That's what I was. I'm happy to come visit you in Fresno, but wouldn't it be better if we all met up and did some fun Beervengery thing together? And I remembered that he'd sent me that thing, and I mentioned it to him right before he left town. And Cider Girl pulled me aside and said, keep on him about that. And I did. And next thing you know, it's October, just slightly after Oktoberfest. But we all went, and for 11 days, we went from Brussels. We started at Brews, went all the way down to the bottom of Belgium and to Brussels, and then all the way across to Munich with a few other stops in between. And it was a really tremendous time.
Oh, that sounds like definitely a bucket list item for me. I mean, I want to make it over there for Oktoberfest at some point, but doing any type of brewery tour is definitely top on my list. And so planning a beer vacation is probably pretty exciting, but it's probably a little bit stressful, that whole planning aspect. So you guys did a guided tour, but
this was organized. Yeah.
Had you thought about like any pros or cons about doing a self-led or a self-paced tour, or were you like, do it for me because I'm going to be drinking? Was that the vibe?
Well, I had traveled with this company before they're called EF tours, EF go ahead tours. So they generally do European vacations. That's where they're really specialists at. And when it's an organized tour, everything's taken care of for you. So you don't have to get on the road. You don't have to worry about booking the hotels or booking dinners or that sort of thing. So and touring breweries. So everything was sort of insider, everything we did. And it was all in the brochure beforehand about what we were going to do, and it just made sense to do it this way. Sometimes these organized tours are not, like, for younger people, let's say, are not as popular. Like, I'm going to do it myself. I'm going to drive myself. I'm going to do this, and it's like, okay, but you're going to spend a similar amount of money, and to have everything taken care of. I mean, I'm all for it myself.
I will also say when you're doing a beer tour, driving yourself isn't always the best way.
No.
I find with one of the things, if you're doing a self-guided thing, a couple things for self-guided is that you need to, either have a plan, go to a place with really good public transportation, or plan on spending some money on Ubers and Lyfts. And that's often that's what I find myself doing. And also, if you're doing self-guided, Google Maps is your friend. You need to have that.
Oh, yes.
It's really great if you're trying to figure out. For when I started traveling with Google Maps, is a game changer, because if you're like trying to plan your day, it not only tell you how far away something is, but it'll give you all the options as far as if you want to take an Uber, if you want to ride a bus, if you want to do a subway, if you want to walk. It tells you how to get there for all of those. And it's traveling for self-guided travel. Google Maps is a must. Of course, it's easy to do when you're doing domestic, but if you don't have a cell phone plan with data, if you're going to Europe and you're doing self-guided, definitely do that. We didn't need it for our tour because we were guided, but if you're doing self-guided, it changes the world if you have Google Maps.
Yeah, it's probably the greatest thing about the internet. I would say. Is Google Maps.
I can't even get around my own little tiny town without Google Maps. So I'm an advocate for Google Maps.
Well, Glenn and I have both done tours, if I'm not mistaken, in Europe where we did go on our own without a guide, and that can be great too, because you're running your own ship, as it were. But sometimes, language barriers and not understanding certain aspects of the culture can make it a little more difficult. So when you have a guide taking care of everything, that's great. And especially in this beer tour, I mean, we got treated royally everywhere we went.
Oh yeah.
And it was, sometimes we thought, oh, maybe we'll get a couple samples at this place. I mean, we got massive pours.
Yeah. If I learned anything about sort of approaching beer in Europe versus beer in the United States, is that short means nothing. We specifically went to places and asked for short pours and got what would be a full pour in the United States. But I also will say, credit to European beers, I did not have any real next day hangover issues. A credit to the quality of beer production that we may be seeing there. Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, I would say I didn't either. I mean, we had other issues.
Yeah, we don't think it was because of the beer, though.
Yeah,
we might have had a bad muscle, or it might have been a stomach. Anyway, everyone's drinking.
That's neither here nor there.
That right now, yeah.
Oh, I love it. And there was actually a question that popped up when I was prepping for this episode tonight. Some questions came up, and Ethan, you kind of talked a little bit about that. So we had two questions come up. First of all, when you taste beers over in Europe, those German beers and all of those, do they taste more fresh than you experienced when you had them over here in the States? Did you notice any difference there?
I definitely, especially when we were in Germany, I felt like they went down a lot easier. And I did not, I mean, again, we're dealing with historic styles in most cases when you're in Germany, especially if you're in Bavaria, there's strict rules around the way that beer is meant to be brewed. And so you're really getting a classic style. So they were much easier to drink. They went down a lot faster than I find here in the United States. That said, one thing that we did sort of notice is that there is a little bit, there's more of a limited palette in terms of what you're getting when you're going to these more traditional German style brewing locations.
In Germany,
right?
we were seeing,
in Germany specifically, we were seeing the same beers over and over again. It was actually an adventure that we took on our very last night there when we went and sought out a craft beer bar, like in the American style, in Munich, that we were sort of starting to see styles that were a little bit more different than what we had been experiencing as we've been going to more traditional brewing locations and things like that. But in terms of like the freshness of the beers, absolutely. I thought that they went down beautifully. And I certainly wound up drinking a lot more than I ever thought I would be. Gentlemen, I don't know if you had a similar reaction.
I think part of that is due to the fact that so much of it is they don't get really high with the ABV there, so that also might have had something to do with why they were going down easily and no hangover. You were going to say, Mike?
Well, Belgium's kind of the opposite. So we did Belgium and Germany. With Belgium, they do make strong Belgian ales. And one place we visited was
Higi
Brewery.
Yeah.
Better known as the home of Delirium Tremens. It's the Delirium
That's true.
Brewery.
Yes.
And
which was pretty spectacular.
It was the best brewery tour I've ever been on. But we have Delirium over here in the States. You can get it in pretty much every store, and I've had it on tap, and it's a good beer. And I'm like, okay, that's a good beer. But having it there, like you say, Laura, it's like, I mean, it's just a different experience. Like it was just really just so delicious, and it made me fall in love with their beers over again. In fact, I came back here to the States and we got some Delirium Red, and it was fine. It's brewed in the same place. Yeah. It was all brewed in the one place. But it wasn't as enjoyable as it was at the tap room. It might have been in the atmosphere, but boy, they treated us well over there. They gave us lots of beer, and it was 11:30 in the morning as well when we started drinking the Deliriums.
Hey, we're on vacation,
Yeah,
rules are off.
Yeah. We really did have to put away the idea of drinking in the morning. Like, no, we're going to do it.
I mean, it was 5:30 in the morning here when we did that.
Fair.
If you
5 o'clock somewhere. 5 o'clock somewhere. No one said which 5 we were looking for. I do want to pick up something from the chat though. Nick did ask about German IPAs, and the answer is yes. That was the final beer I had on our trip at our craft beer bar. I was able to get a European take on an American IPA from a brewery called Kamba that was actually quite good. It wasn't as creative as some of the IPAs that we tend to find here stateside, but it was really good. And I hadn't had an IPA in about 2 weeks at that point. So it tasted fantastic, and it was kind of exciting to get that take on it. So shout out to Kamba IPAs for doing it right American style.
There you go. I love that. And you actually answered the next question that I was going to ask from my research. I had Tim and Audrey submit some questions. And so shout out to Tim and Audrey if you guys are there in the live stream. But you just answered the question if any American style beers were over there. So look at you, ahead of the game. I love it.
And on the last day we were at this bar, and I thought to myself, why didn't we visit any of these craft breweries? Because they're in Germany. And I'd say I'm going to write a letter to go ahead and say, hey, I got to add this on. Now, we got another question in the chat about the styles that stuck out. But before we do that, I think maybe should we open a second beer here?
I'm sure we can.
I mean,
I drink kind of slow, but I'm all for it.
If you insist.
Listen, our live streamers.
I'm still working on my first, but it's a tall boy, so
that's okay. Well, I'm actually interested in having this because this is a West Coast style. This next one is called Hop Foo.
Let's take a beer break. Sorry I couldn't be there for this week's episode. Laura, you're crushing it as always. But I wanted to pop in and talk more about something exciting we have coming for the holiday season. The Hoppy Hanukkah and 12 Beers of Christmas boxes. For the third year in a row, we'll be celebrating Hanukkah and Christmas the best way we know, by opening great beers from around the country and streaming every night as we explore these beers together. Pretty much, what we do on this show, just with beers from a bunch of different cities around the country and back-to-back nightly streams with a bigger focus on live video content. We'll have engaging and hilarious hosts, passionate guests, and as always, we'll be featuring beers from some of the best breweries in the United States, with this year's boxes including offerings from Equilibrium Brewing out of Middletown, New York, and Good Life Brewing Company from Bend, Oregon. Our Hanukkah streams will run from December 18th through December 25th, starting at 8:30 p.m. Eastern each night, and our 12 Beers of Christmas streams will run from December 26th through January 5th, at 9 p.m. Eastern each night. Yes, you caught that right. 19 straight days of beer-themed holiday streams, and with 3 episodes of BLT packed in there as well, we got you covered for all your live beer content in December. To make sure you get your boxes before the holidays, be sure to purchase the Hoppy Hanukkah by December 8th and the 12 Beers of Christmas by December 13th. These make great gifts for the beer lover in your life, which is, probably you if you listen to this podcast. So treat yourself or treat that special loved one and pick up one of these boxes today. We've also got great Black Friday and Cyber Monday deals from all of the brands here at the CBT Group. So check the episode description for more information on snagging some of the best deals on our educationally focused beer gifts. Now, let's get back to the show.
Laura, can you tell us about this beer?
Oh, I can. Of course, I will tell you everything. And actually, I will give you a little behind the scenes information here. So I know, I love it. So if the listeners don't know, I'm the one who actually reaches out to these breweries to get the beer all lined up. So I talk to the brewers, we figure out what beer we're going to have. And they were like, you have to have the hop food. Do you know why? Because it's an award-winning beer. Well, this was before GABF. And this is actually the 2022 World Beer Cup gold medal winning West Coast IPA. Boom. Ooh. There it is. I'm not even showing you the label. There you go. But there's a bunch of different hops in here. There's 5 different kinds of hops, and it has a really big kick to the olfactory system. That's a big thing about this one, is the aroma is really, really pungent and amazing and flavorful. There's also pine, dank resins, fresh flowers, peppery spice, tropical fruit, berries, melon, stone fruit, and a lingering citrusy finish. And according to NPBC, the original homebrew recipe for Hop Fu is the single most awarded homebrew recipe in America. You're welcome for putting this in the box. Drink it and drink it
very
well.
much.
I'm so excited about this beer.
Yeah, and I love comparing, and this is a great comparison with these two.
Oh yeah, you can really
style
see it.
IPA and the hazy New England style, and you could see that. I mean, that's a huge difference. And when New England is now considered its own style, the hazy, but I mean, look at that. Well, obviously it's the filtering, and the extra dry hopping, but I do like a West Coast IPA. I do, and this is a nice one, very nice.
I love it. Okay, so let's go back to that question in the chat. Any styles that stuck out while you guys were traveling?
No doubt. For me, I would say, I'm going to go ahead and say, and you know what I'm going to say.
I know exactly what you're going to say.
We went to the city of Bamberg, and this was something that I was looking forward to, was going to Bamberg, and Bamberg is known for their Hauk beer. The Hauk beer, which is maybe more in American speak as the Rausch beer, which is also known as the smoked beer, the smoked lager. And we tried 3 different ones while we were there. We did do a brewery crawl in Bamberg, and wow, I mean, I had the one from Klosterbrau, the smoked lager, which was just absolutely beautiful. The smoky nose, a smoky flavor. I thought it was the best beer of the trip, besides maybe a triple that we had in Belgium. But that's for me, that stands out. Fellas,
right?
Well,
yeah,
Mike. First, I just want to give Mike credit here, because you're the master of the crawl. We said this is a very curated tour, but it had gaps in it, and Mike was like weeks for like, he was like, Cider Girl was going, and like, we have to go out. It's like, no, I'm planning the crawl. He'd be locked in a room just mapping out every possible place. And so that Bamberg crawl was all Mike. He helped us figure out where we were going.
That was our most successful crawl.
Yeah, I did a little bit of true guided tour, and then a little bit of self-led tour. I love it. It's the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
So Glenn, what was your favorite? Yeah.
My very favorite was also in Bamberg, and I cannot remember what was the name of that first place we went after with that weird tour guide.
I believe that was the Klosterbrau in Bamberg.
We have to give him credit, because Klosterbrau was not on my map.
I'm sorry. Yeah, weird he's much more nuanced than just weird. But anyway, he did guide us to this place called
Eccentric
Klosterbrau. And Ethan and I both had this incredible Schwartz beer there.
Mhm.
And it is
Oh, yeah.
probably not only the best beer I had the whole time, but definitely maybe the best Schwartz beer I've ever had.
That's amazing.
Really, really tremendous. I love the smoked beers there too. In fact, in addition to the smoked one we had that it was known for, we wound up getting a smoked Marzen at one of the places you took us to.
Yeah.
And that's the first time I've ever seen that one.
Yep.
Or as they say,
That was Melton. Yes, that was at the Special Brewery, and that was definitely one of my all-time favorites. While this was not my favorite, there is a beer that I wanted to call out that came to us in Belgium that was a unique experience for all of us. I think the Special Barson was one of my favorites that had a smoky character, but we did go on a mission to find the original Gruit. Now, for those of you who do not know about a Gruit is a beer that is Laura knows all about it. Laura, will you educate the children for us, please?
You have much more knowledge on this than I do. I'm going to let you take it away.
Fair enough. A Gruit is a beer that is brewed without hops. Now, it's an historic style, goes all the way back, and was originally, or at least historically, goes back to Ghent in Belgium. And there has been a tradition there to try and sort of find the original Gruit. And we went to a brewery. Again, this was of our own finding, called Gruut, Gruut, in Ghent, which is a brewery, woman-owned and woman-run brewery. She has been studying brewing for years, and actually went back to historic recipes to try and make sort of an OG Gruit. And all the beers that are produced there are Gruit styles. And it's as close to what we know as an historic Gruit as exists out there. There's no specific recipe, but she's got a really good one out there. And, it became a mission to go and find this beer, because we felt like we really could not beervenge appropriately if we did not try it. And I will say, was it my favorite beer I had in Europe? No. I love hops and I missed them deeply. But if you are going to Ghent, this has to be on your list, because it is such a unique approach, and they're using some historic equipment there. So it's worth the trip. It's worth checking it out. And they do flights to give you a full sampling of what you can experience there. And as another Beervenger who joined us on the trip said, if we were living in Ghent and we went there every day for a month, as one should, you would definitely gain a taste for it. But it was not my top beer, but it was certainly one of the most memorable and most exciting beers that I tasted on the tour. So,
wonderful
definitely.
Brewery. It was really a nice
amazing.
place.
And they are killing it. They have international distribution. They just haven't made it to the States yet.
Yeah.
Probably for reasons that I understand.
We did read about the 6 Point Brewing is doing a something in Brooklyn about it.
Yeah, with
they do have a Gruit
NPR. It was a Science Friday thing. Did any of you listen to that? I didn't know if it was.
I've not listened to it,
Friday,
but
okay.
I was investigating there the other day, and I tried it, and it was
a Gruit.
It was.
Oh, I love it. Yeah,
Wait.
bringing it over to the States. And then it's funny because Celine is in the chat saying, can you bring City Brew Tours, our sister company that does in-person tours, to Europe for this trip? I'll put it in the owner's ear.
Yeah.
He's probably listening right now. Hey, Chad, shout out to you.
Just say the four of us can take care of this for you.
Absolutely. We're happy to do that.
I'm
a fun idea.
I will travel to Europe in a heartbeat to drink beer with you guys, because we're having so much fun. I know we'd have way too much fun over there as well. But speaking of your trip, we talked about some of the breweries that you guys went to, but I would like to know, what was the favorite place that you went that wasn't a brewer? Maybe brewery or beer adjacent, but not necessarily a brewer. What was your favorite thing that you went to? How about
we probably all have the same answer on this one.
Okay, three,
Mike,
2, 1.
Hop Farm.
Hop Farm.
Yeah, Hop Farm.
Hop
did
Farm.
it.
Yeah,
Hop
the only reason I hesitated was because I didn't. We did a couple things that weren't even adjacent, but
Beer
were really
related,
great
right.
highlights of it.
Right.
I would call that dinner we had there. But yeah, definitely the Hop Farm was the best.
And we saw wonderful
beer
art
adjacent.
and things like that too.
And to be fair, we did
culture, whatever.
But I mean, we did have some beer at the Hop Farm, so it wasn't just
There
adjacent.
was,
but
they gave
yeah,
us
but
2 beers.
They did. It was
So yeah, I heard there was the
Also in
hop
the morning.
farm, but then I also heard that there was a cooking class that you guys took as
Oh,
well.
yeah.
Ethan, do you want to
Yeah.
elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, well, so when you're thinking about, going on producing a beer tourism experience for yourself, drinking is excellent and one should do that, but you also got to eat. Okay. And there's also more than just beer out there. And so one of the, the hop farm was a truly incredible experience. We got to meet Kathy, who was a part of a third generation hop brewing family. And we walked all through the hop fields and saw the production machines. All that was great. But we also were invited to do an at-home cooking class from a professional chef in Belgium. And she taught us some traditional Belgian meals. And then we did sort of like in that case, it was a little bit more wine focused than beer, but a food and beer pairing circumstance. And for me, that was just really kind of exciting because not only were we getting to learn a skill, but we were also getting to meet someone who practices that skill every day and get to know a little bit more about what their life was like in what wound up being her apartment,
Her home,
which was kind of spectacular. Yeah.
It's like a whole different type of Airbnb right there. Just
she lived in a 5-floor. She lived on the 5th floor. Was it the 5th floor? It was a high up.
Yeah,
there was an elevator, but it was an elevator from the 19th century,
which was so cool.
So it was an old building, and but what a wonderful experience. We made beet tartare, which is not beef tartare, but a vegetarian version with actual beets.
Very good.
And that was turned out excellent. It was a potato salad that Glenn was involved in the making of. With
potatoes and bacon, green beans, and lots of mustard. There was mustard in there too.
And also Belgian waffles. So it was, and we all had to do the work to actually prepare it. They did most of the work, to be honest, but
they did a lot of the prep. Yeah,
but there was a lot of cutting. We put it together, and it was a wonderful experience. I would recommend that on any tour you go to, if you can get somebody to do a cooking class in their own apartment. I mean, that was really very unique and fun.
Yeah,
and you were my recollections, Mike, is you were a little skeptical about that going in. But you were completely won over.
Well, I was angry.
Why?
Because I was overwalked.
Oh, yeah. That is maybe one downfall of going on tours, is that there is a lot of walking, but you got to work off the alcohol that you're drinking.
That's true.
That's true. In this one situation, we had just done a lot of wine. It seemed like our guide didn't quite know where she was going, which I think did actually happen. She might have taken a wrong turn somewhere. Yeah. So we were just walking a lot. And when we got there, I'm like, all right, I don't care about this. I was just done, which is my personality. I do that. The kids out there might not know.
You were hangry.
I was hangry.
Yeah, you were hangry. Yeah. It's true. It's true.
Well, once we got in there and started to work, I was a professional cook and chef for over 20 years. So when we got in there, I was like, I'm not volunteering to do anything. And then when they started to do the things, and then when it came to we had to dice the beets, right? Mm-hmm. So yes. I said, all right, fine, I'll just do them.
Let's be clear. He started giving orders because I wound up being his sous chef, and I'm just happy I have all 10 fingers left.
Right. I did do 3 beats to everyone else's 1, but
I mean, if you were a professional chef for a while, and every time I listen to this month's episodes, I learn something new about Mike Birch. Last week was the YouTube stardom. Who knew? Mm-hmm. I did go back and watch some of those videos. Amazing. But not only are you a YouTube sensation, but you were also a chef. So I'm learning new things about you every time that
we're about to do Thanksgiving here in the house. So I always get roped into doing the cooking no matter what Thanksgiving I go to.
Oh, I love it. All right. So I would like to know, talking about beer travel. Yes. Obviously, not everybody is going to be drinking the whole time. Some people might not even drink who are on your party, right? Yeah. So how can you help your non-beer drinking companions find something to drink if you're on a beer tour? Reel me that.
That's a great question. We did have a couple of non-beer drinking companions. Most notably is my wife Bricken, and she did very well though. I mean, because there was a lot of wine. We did have wine as well. But yeah, it is tough. I mean, going on a beer tour. to satisfy those people. I don't know. I mean, you got something on that?
There are some unique styles, and we did find one for many of we did have some people who didn't particularly enjoy beer, but there was one style that did seem to be a win over. Glenn, do you remember this one? Because I feel like it was a distinct moment for many of us.
Of course, it was one that I'd become aware of about a year before, because I'd gotten one of these from Oregon, but it was great to taste from the source. And that's the Belgian lambic known as Kriek. Kriek, also known as a cherry lambic. And yeah, everyone, even I believe even Bricken liked that one. She said, I have a beer that I like. I also have to respond to what Celine put in here, saying that their non-beer drinking person just complains. But
ours were good sports.
I mean, maybe that's because ours were women and yours is a man, Celine. Because yeah, women, it would actually. Both Bricken and another woman, as well as our guide, none of them were really into beer, but they were all very good sports and had a wonderful time and found a few things they liked.
Yeah. So I think creativity in options and seeing what you can find that maybe goes at what the edges of what those of us who tend to love beer might think is this even qualifying as a beer, can be an interesting place for those folks to live. And it was really exciting to watch everyone get handed Krieks and just start downing them, regardless of whether you considered yourself a beer lover or a beer hater. I hate to say that. I feel like the Krieks just disappeared every time they showed up.
That's true.
Well, being married to a non-beer drinker, I am very conscious of that. And so when we start our Brews Less Traveled European tours, that is definitely something we're going to take into account.
The important,
because we don't want people, if you're a couple, if it's like one doesn't drink beer, it's like, oh well, okay, bye. No, you want to go together,
right?
So yeah, we will be conscious of that on our tours. I promise.
Yes,
and we're going to find things to drink. And when I would do some of our brewery crawls, when we go to New York or wherever, I would look and check the cider availability on the tap list and hope that there's one. And most breweries, to their credit, will have those options.
I would say they were less good about it when we started doing that, but I find now it's the same thing the way when vegetarianism first started, anyone we could ever get was a fish sandwich,
right? And
now every place has vegetarian options, and I think it's the same. I feel it's the same way, like every place has some cider.
There's a lot of improvement, and honestly, I talk about this on our beer and cheese events. Is like not everybody likes the taste of beer. The bitterness in beer that's the strongest flavor, and so a lot of people specifically don't like beer because of the bitterness, and so that's something that I'm very conscious of. So I hope that when we start our tours, we're going to make sure everybody has something to drink.
I love that. So that's one thing we got to think about is the non-beer drinking companions. But another thing that we have to think about is you're drinking all day long.
Yeah.
How important is breakfast?
So
it's the most important meal of the day.
Let's just be clear. Beer tourism is an Olympic sport. Okay. You have to train for this for years, but honestly, there are performance enhancing drugs. And as far as I'm concerned, one of them is breakfast.
I thought you were going to say bacon, but yeah.
Same thing.
Don't they qualify? No, one of the tips that I have learned in my own planning of beer adventures and also our time together is that if you're going to book your hotel, make sure it comes with an easy access to something to fill your stomach at the beginning of the day. Because I don't know that there was a day when we did not start having alcohol in our systems afternoon while we were in Europe. That just seems to be the culture of the space. And having just something in there to sop it all up certainly made all the difference for me.
Yeah, no, that makes a whole lot of sense. If I want to go back to what you said, Ethan, earlier before you talked about the dinner. You said you got to eat, and since my father and your father were both with us on this tour, I'm reminded of something I once heard Tim Russert say. One of the best pieces of advice his father ever gave him was, "If you're going to drink, you got to eat."
100%.
It seems obvious, but it's just wonderful fatherly advice, I think.
Many of us ignore that advice.
Yes, to our peril.
To our own peril, exactly. But in Europe, I don't know if anyone's done any European trips, but generally, whatever hotel you're staying at, breakfasts are fantastic. Huge buffets that have everything you want. Like not just everything for breakfast, but every kind of meal of the day. They'll have fresh vegetables at breakfast, and lots of breads and
tons of stuff. Yeah,
pastries.
overwhelming.
Yeah, overwhelming. Yeah. So I mean, that was never a problem. Was we always got breakfast on our tour, and we will do that when we start our Brews Less Traveled tour.
Now, I'm not sure if that's necessarily all of Europe. It's definitely the countries we were in. I know, Ethan, before you joined us, you were in Amsterdam, and my experience in Amsterdam was that I found that the breakfast things were a little more. They weren't quite just continental, but they weren't much more than continental. What was your experience there?
Well, I was on my own in that circumstance. Okay. So I was lucky enough that I met up with my dad a little bit before we all adventured in, and he joined us as well. But we were staying on the 5th floor of a canal house in Amsterdam that he had managed access to. So we were producing our own breakfasts. But
there you go.
But Dad enjoys a drink as much as I do. I come from good drinking stock. And so he knew that eggs and bacon and all that good stuff was an important start to every day. So we definitely did really kind of do our best to make sure that we were well prepared.
Now Celine is coming saying in Italy, she couldn't find breakfast there anywhere. So
interesting.
Yep. I'm just saying, if you're going for the endurance sport of beer tourism, take care of yourself. Okay.
Yeah. Right.
Stretch, drink your water, and most importantly, eat a hearty breakfast.
Yes, this is the Olympics, people. You have to prepare for Beer Olympics.
Yes.
So, Laura, did you realize this was going to become a Beervengers podcast? We have taken over.
We have.
Hey, I'm happy with it. Brian's not here. There's no rules. I'm like, we're gonna have a good time, guys. But I do want to go to a question that came up in the chat. Speaking of food, Matt, this is a great question. What meal on the trip was most memorable? Glenn, let's start with you, putting you on the spot. Best meal.
I mean, there was. I would have to say, I don't want to be a broken record, but that cooking class thing, that was definitely the most memorable. And I want to put it to you guys as the second one, because there was one that you were able to go that I unfortunately found myself indisposed for. But how was that beer? How did that beer pairing meal that we were on stack up with all the rest of them?
I had so many beers that I don't remember what the food was. It was good.
It
was darn good.
It was very good. It was a progressive meal with a couple different options. I believe that I had a version of fish just to sort of mix things up, but it was well done. I mean, I think one thing that stands out to me is that, German food is what we expected. We had lots of great sausages, and we had huge pork knuckles and things like that, meat and potatoes.
Lots of meat and potatoes.
Yes. And that was honestly, I remember hoping for a vegetable at some point, which I was assured by our guide was not like that people in Germany and Belgium also eat vegetables too. We just didn't see many because of where we were going, But I do recall when we were in Bamberg, when we did finally have the OG not Schwarzbier, the Rauchbier.
The Rauchbier, yes.
The Rauchbier, yes.
Schenkerla?
Yep, Schenkerlan. We did wind up with a full pork knuckle that was larger than my fist, and it was truly exceptional. It felt like we had moved back to a medieval time when we roasted our malt over open flame, so it was smoky, and like they gave you a hunk of meat to go with it, and I was quite pleased.
Yeah.
It's like it. Oh my goodness, I love it. All right, so Mike, lead us into that next question. Let's bring it back to San Diego, because that's where we actually are in this episode.
Let's get back to San Diego.
Yeah.
So I've been to San Diego a couple of times. Now, Glenn, you went on a beer vacation to San Diego in was it November last year?
It was October, November of 2021. Basically, what happened was what we were all dealing with, the pandemic. Obviously we're still dealing with it in our various ways, but that was the point where it's post-vaccine, haven't been anywhere in a year and a half plus. And I'm finally feeling safe to travel. And a friend of mine was getting married in Lake Elsinore, which is about halfway between LA and San Diego. And I just decided, okay, well, I'm going to make this my own personal solo vacation. And San Diego seems to be the better beer city than LA. So I'm just going to go there like 5 days early and visit as many breweries as I can. And I will talk about some of my highlights, but I also feel like since they're the ones that are supposed to be the focus this evening, I did go to North Park.
Okay, great.
And I had their Citra Collider, which has a color very similar to that first beer you all had. I don't know if this will show up. Yes, the light is.
You got a picture.
Good. Yeah, you can kind of see it. This is from because I searched my Untapped profile. This is the only North Park beer I have. But
and it's got the haze. Yeah,
you can see it's like very similar there.
Beautiful.
And that was great. Although I would say AleSmith was really fantastic. AleSmith was the one place I went to where there were so many. They do such great imperial stouts and versions of that I only did flights when I was there. And I still didn't get to drink every single one that I wanted to. It was so fantastic. But also, and I don't know how they're doing now, but Modern Times, I know they've been going through some difficulties. Had a really wonderful experience visiting them as well. But that's what I was talking about as far as going to different places. And I found that where I specifically chose to stay at a place that was very near White Labs and McKellar and AleSmith and Ballast Point and a few others, but it wasn't really an area with great public transportation. So what I would do is I would pick an area of town I wanted to go to, and I would get a lift to there and do as much walking and even a little bit of busing within it. So it was I spent a lot of time in Old Town. There was a lot of walking that day because I found myself at both Modern Times as well as Stone. And yeah, I mean, I could talk about it for longer than we have to talk tonight, but it was there was so many. It was a really great experience. And like I said, because I was curating it myself, being able to have I got a lot of advice from a lot of friends. That's the other thing I would say. If you're going to go someplace, say, hey, reach out on Facebook or whatever social media you're on, or your group of friends, and say, I've never been to this place. I'm going to this place. Any suggestions? That is always a great starting place. And I still couldn't. And San Diego is such an incredibly beer rich city. I could only scratch the surface during those 5 days, but I did all the damage I could.
Well, I'm glad you did. And even so, you said you were walking a lot, you were getting bored of it. Hopefully you weren't as upset as Mike was when you guys were in Europe doing that walking tour. Okay.
No, I
less angry.
Less angry.
Well, but also remember, in Mike's situation, he kind of had to go with the group. And at the end of the time, we were all walking back to the hotel, and there was a bit of a revolt. There were 4 people who said, nope, we're taking an Uber.
And I managed to get Wi-Fi, be like, look at that Uber.
I mean, that is the one nice thing about solo traveling, is it's entirely my choice whether I want to walk or take an Uber, or walk part of the way and Uber the rest of the way. It's entirely, if I get too angry, I have plenty of solutions at my fingertips, because I don't have 12 people with me who have to agree on it.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah, I know. If I'm going anywhere, if I'm hungry, I'm hangry. Definitely. And if I drink beer on an empty stomach, even worse. So I made sure to have a nice carb meal before this evening, because these are 2 7% beers and I'm a little woman. So I prepared.
The endurance sport of drinking, Laura. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you very much.
I just that you're that we have never met in person. So you're a tiny woman. How tall are you?
I'm 5'4". I mean, I'm normal. I'm normal.
There's a normal person.
I'm a normal person. It's
not the people who are not the people who are shorter than that aren't normal.
That's right. That's right.
We don't want to get canceled.
Oh, we can't get canceled on the episode where Brian's not even the host. I mean,
this is going to become a Beervengers episode.
We ruined the show.
Oh no!
Now we come to the point in the show where we have to give Laura her Beervenger name. No,
dear.
I'm kidding. We'll do it. We'll do that later. We'll do.
That'll happen.
We'll actually have you on the show.
All right.
That's
watch
true.
out.
We definitely should. Yeah.
Okay. So when that happens, we'll give a shout out here on BLT. Brian will make sure that all of you guys know when I'm on Beervengers. And now it's cemented. Now they can't back out and say, no, Laura, you can't be on the show. I get to do it now.
Yes. It should have happened sooner than that.
Really? It's our own fault.
Why haven't you invited me yet? No, I'm just kidding. Okay. So usually at the end of the show, we ask our guests what they feel our featured city should be most well known for. However, I would like to ask you guys, because I'm not the real host, Brian will be back next week. I want to ask you guys, since we're talking about beer travel as a whole, what is your biggest piece of advice for new beer travelers? And I'm going to put Ethan on the spot. You're going first.
I mean, I think mine is pretty clear. Breakfast. Okay. Breakfast. No, here's the thing. If you are, I mean, I counted that we probably tasted upwards of 50 beers. Okay. At least certainly in the time that I did before I met up with everybody. I probably hit around 50 beers over the course of the thing. And that again is not for the faint of heart. So if you have to build up your endurance and your tolerance as a part of this, but most importantly, you do have to take care of yourself, because while many parts of our trip sort of blend together, I do have very distinct memories of certain beers, and those things, those like beers are really special memories to me. And if I had not like prepared and built up to this experience and had breakfast every day, I don't think that those memories would have stuck around as much. So, so preparation is key, as is breakfast.
I love it. All right, Glenn, here we go. Best piece of advice.
Well, yeah, first of all, I'm gonna disagree a little bit. For me, breakfast, eating along while you drink is great. It doesn't necessarily have to be breakfast, because I'm not really a breakfast person. I did enjoy the breakfast we had. I'm glad it was included with what we paid for the tour, but I've also been traveling a lot. Like, okay, I got to make sure at least by my second beer, that second beer is with lunch. But so yeah, so the idea of, I absolutely agree with the notion of connecting that together. And another one I think I said already is especially if you're not on a guided tour, like, and we had Matt wants to know the name of the company. EF Go Ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to do that right now.
But I would also say that if you're by yourself, definitely utilize Google Maps for everything it's worth. Because I've traveled before that existed, and the first time I traveled with it, I couldn't believe how much easier it was to find places. I don't know what to tell Laura if she can't get around her own town without it. So that makes me think we've all become too dependent on it. But when you're traveling in an unfamiliar place, it makes things so much easier. It means you don't have to be that tourist standing by the side of the road unfolding your map looking like a big mark.
All right, I love it. And how about you, Mike? Your best advice for new beer travelers?
Well, the key is to enjoy yourself and not to worry too much about, oh, am I going overboard? As long as you're not driving or operating heavy machinery, which you're probably not on vacation.
I sure hope not.
Shouldn't be.
Right, I hope not. Let loose, relax a little bit. But something that my wife Bricken, this was one of our catchphrases on the tour.
Yep, that's true.
She said, "You don't have to finish it."
There you go. Yeah,
that's good advice.
And when I was getting over my stomach virus, that was especially true.
Yeah,
no.
I was like, I'll have a taste.
I will say the captain and I were not. We both got the stomach flu, but we were not necessarily living by that most of the days.
Yeah,
I certainly wasn't either, but
let's hope not.
But it is true. It is true. It is worth. I mean, it's worth trying everything. That's, I guess, another thing. But if you don't like it, you definitely don't have to finish it.
Exactly. I love it. I love it. And I do want to say that you guys over on Beervengers, you guys have at least 2 episodes, like 2.5 hours of content where you guys are talking about all of the trip adventures that you went on. I hope that the food poisoning story comes up, because we didn't talk about it tonight. So I would love for you guys to plug where you guys can be found, the Beervengers. I'm so excited that you guys were here. So thank you so much for being here. So plug your show, plug anywhere else that you would like to. Go ahead.
Take it away, Captain.
I am still in the process of editing it, so presuming there's not stuff that I have to, remove, it is likely to be 2.5 hours. You released part 1 this week. In fact, that was the other bit of advice I was going to tease, is that one of the things you really need some advice on how to deal with jet lag, but for that, you've got to listen to the podcast. We just released episode 1, which also includes Mike's wife Bricken, my dad, Ethan's dad, and then which gives an overview of their stories as well as a few tidbits about our trip, and then we have an exhaustive about 80-minute day by day travel log of everything we did. That's if it hadn't been for that time you guys dropped out, it was like, it looked like it was like closer to 90. Once I edited anyway, that's too much inside baseball there. Anyway, but it looks like it's going to be about 80 minutes when all is said and done. But we went through a day-by-day travelogue of everything we did. And so if you want to hear more about that, and I would also say, if you want to hear more about my San Diego trip, you can look into our archives and listen to episode 51, where I talk extensively about my trip to San Diego, since to bring it all full circle back to what this show is really supposed to be about, the city we're all celebrating, and my trip to AleSmith and everything.
And we can find us at thebeervengers.com or just The Beervengers, wherever you find your podcasts.
Yeah, just put that little at, put a little
or
at
your
symbol
social
there.
medias.
Yeah.
Yes, or your social medias.
Make sure you put the in there. It's at The Beervengers.
Love it.
The only thing we don't have is a TikTok, and
Oh, can you guys please make a TikTok? That would be so entertaining for me.
Well, I've registered us with one, but I need to. Mike is the only one among us who seems to be really TikTok savvy. So maybe he can figure out how to put something on there.
Mike was a YouTube superstar, so he can handle the video.
Exactly. The TikToks are easy for you YouTube people. This is like you're downshifting to make it big on TikTok.
By the way, I'm going to do, before we end, I'm going to do a cuvee.
Oh, cuvee, melange.
Right.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my goodness.
I'm feeling emotional now.
I don't know if the North Park people would approve of this, but let's give it a shot.
For those of you who are listening to the episode, Mike just poured the 2 beers into one glass, mixing these 2 IPAs. So, Mike, how does it taste?
It's a nice mix. It's
I love it.
I will say the hazy dominates.
I love it.
It's just like the lemonade with the shandy, except they both have alcohol in them.
Look at the color. I mean, it's like the hazy just takes over.
It really does, yeah.
Okay,
That's nice, though.
Thank you to everyone who is here in the live stream for listening and tuning in, as well as to all of our podcast and YouTube listeners and watchers. Make sure to go and follow at the Beervengers on Instagram and subscribe to their podcast. And if you don't already subscribe to ours, do that too. What are you waiting for?
Obviously.
So, exactly. You can follow us at Brewvana, and we'll be back next week with our next San Diego episode of Brews Less Traveled. But until then, as Brian always says, stay safe, be kind, and support local breweries. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks, y'all. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for watching Brews Less Traveled on YouTube. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more interviews with brewery professionals.